Okay, so welcome to another episode of Six Strings and Other Stories. Today's guest is an old friend of mine, all the way from where are you right now? Calcutta, or Bombay.
I'm in Bombay.
Okay, so please welcome all the way from Bombay, Mr. Tajdar Junaid. Now,
Hello.
Taj, hello. Taj is an old friend. I mean, we first met, I think, around 2002, 2003,
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
Great
Great
Indian
Indian
Rock.
talk.
Yeah. And we've been fast friends ever since, and across cities and sometimes countries and sometimes hemispheres. But
Yeah.
he's an astounding musician overall, because like, we speak to a lot of guitar players, but Taj is more than just a guitar player. He's like a great guitar player, so no doubt about that. But he's also a brilliant writer and an artist overall. I always say like an artist is a musician who has something to say, and Taj has quite a few things to say. So
Thank you.
welcome to the show, man, and let's get started right away. So I believe from some of your interviews that I read, you got into music in terms of playing music because of Led Zeppelin. So you want to tell us about that?
For sure, for sure. So I still remember very clearly. It was my cousin who we were meeting for the first time. Her name is Zenat, and she would stay in America. And we would hear about her that we have this cousin staying in America. And so she came down for her first visit to India and she carried few tapes,
Okay.
cassette tapes. And I remember very clearly one of them was Beastie Boys and the other was Candlebox. There used to be a band
Yeah,
called
I
Candlebox
remember them. Yeah.
and Led Zeppelin. And the song was one of them was Dazed and Confused and Whole Lot of Love. So when she played that, I was like, what is going on? What is that sound? Especially the in between section of
Yeah.
Whole Lot of Love.
It gets very trippy.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I was in class 7.
Okay.
Very well remember. Class 7. So you what? You are
13,
12,
12,
12,
13, yeah.
13. Man. Man, that
I think
feeling.
it hit at the right time as well. That's like just
Man,
the right age
really. I
to
mean,
get
and
into.
then you can never forget that feeling. I mean, for me at least, the first instance when you hear the band and it just sucks you in. And even now, when I listen to that record or see them any old footage of Zeppelin, I'm that 12, 13 again. The thrill of just playing air guitar and just trying to imitate John Bonham is still a high.
Yeah, you got into the drums first, I believe,
Oh
before the
man,
guitar.
that John Bonham thing was so addictive, so addictive. Just the feeling of someone pounding that drum so hard and locking in with the groove and making a great song out of it, which you can
Yeah.
hum. So for a long time, I tried to get a drum kit, but our room was pretty small, so that didn't fit in. So I would go over to my friends who were seniors in my school and would play drums. Go to their house and try and pester them for lessons and just play a little bit. But eventually, I figured that there's no way I can get a drum kit in the house. So my elder brother used to play a little bit of guitars. He had few friends who played guitars. There was an acoustic guitar around, and there was a book, one of those chord books. I forget one
Melby.
of those. Yeah. That's the one.
Yeah, everyone had that. I mean, at
Had
least my
those
age.
photos. Yeah, the photographs of all the chords and everything. So yeah, that was
Do
how
you,
I got it.
do you remember seeing F and figuring out what the hell? How do I do that?
Yeah, at first, the bar shape was very confusing,
Yeah.
and also because the brain is wired in such a way because the photograph of the chords are like this, and you are playing the guitar and you're seeing the notes like that way. So you go like, wait, where is my fourth finger? You might just end up doing ulta also, in the
You have
first
to
few
you have
lessons.
to hold the guitar like Slash and figure it out.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
But it's funny you spoke about Bonham because I think all the drummers of that era, like Bonham, Ian Pace, Mitch Mitchell, they could all swing. They were like powerful drummers, but that swing was there. It wasn't just like bam, 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 bam. There was something to
Yeah.
the groove.
In
So
fact, to add to that, just the other day, I was seeing an interview of Chad Smith with Charlie Watts the day he passed away, and they're talking about how did you get into playing rock and roll. So he said that jazz was pop music
yeah,
in 50s and 60s, and that's what they grew up on, and they would see these jazz drummers swing and try and imitate that. but that somehow in their own way it became rock and roll.
Yeah.
So, but for them the foundation was those swing drummers.
Yeah. What's the next Zeppelin album you got after that? You like look it up and say, I need to find more of this band or something?
I think another credit goes to Rock Street Journal at that time. That was a huge inspiration for many people of that age, because that was the only magazine freely available at stores or even newspaper stands in Calcutta where we were growing up. For that matter, India. So that carried a lot of information, good information about bands. Then my brother's friends told me, okay, Zeppelin, so this cassette, then that cassette, Then there was this guy who used to bootleg a lot of cassettes and tapes and videotapes in Free School Street. His name is Chotu. We are still very good friends. So his trip was to just keep on pirating LPs and cassettes and tapes. So there I saw this whole collection of 1, 2, 3, 4 of Led Zeppelin. And then, I told myself, okay, let's start with the one. So then gradually with each lunch money, tiffin money save, it would go into those cassettes over there. And it was a big lesson, man.
Yeah.
It was a big lesson. Just listening to all those records and figuring out and trying to understand, this whole energy, something else.
It just starts on even like the very first album, very first song, bam, bam, for like good times, bad times. And what a band.
And then later you learn that album was recorded in 48 hours, your jaws are dropped.
Yeah.
So that is some other level of genius, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's how things are. You can still do it, you can still record, go and rehearse. Sure. I mean, they did their rehearsal, they did a few gigs.
Sure.
Go set up. I mean,
also, I think at that time, because of the options were less, tape, running into tape is expensive. Now there's a plethora of options, and that's what takes up more decision-taking time. And
it does. You know what happens? The decision process gets pushed till the mix stage. Then you have to like go through everything and make sense of it. Whereas if you had just done that while you were recording, the whole thing was like you would record and you push your faders up and that was your mix. move on to the next one. After Zeppelin, what was the next band that captured your fancy?
Wow. Uriah Heep, then Deep Purple, definitely. Deep Purple, somehow Smoke on the Water was always playing, because we lived in an Anglo-Indian neighborhood. That reminds me, even the Anglican neighborhood that we lived in played a huge role, because every evening you would hear some pop music or some kind of songs playing through those windows when you would walk down the lane, Cliff Richard, early Beatles, Rolling Stones, all these.
Is it just me or
passing by?
Yeah. Is it just me or did like those days people would play music louder? Right?
I think they would play louder because also people enjoyed, even the neighbors wouldn't mind. Maybe something to do with that.
Yeah. Because I mean, today I was listening to Led Zeppelin with Nia, and we turned the volume up like really loud, like so she could, enjoy herself and everything. I was just like, these days, people don't really, like you're kind of mindful that you shouldn't piss people off.
Yeah.
When did you get into the Beatles? Because I believe you're a big Beatles fan, right?
Much later. Okay. I think maybe around class 9 or 10 perhaps. Yeah. About maybe I was 15, 16, 17 perhaps. Later.
Okay.
Much later. But also, since you asked, around that time, Chotu, our friend in Calcutta who used to make these tapes, he used to make these mixed tapes of different artists and all compile them. And you would also get best of Grammy or top 10 of 1985, and that would have Phil Collins and this and that and Vanilla Ice.
Do you remember that was now also compilations? Now that's what I call music, and it would have a number. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Those used to be quite popular as well. Now 21, now 32.
Yeah, that's one. I think it was Times Now. Was it their label?
I have no idea. And then there's
I got to know got to know about Nirvana through that, one of those compilation tapes,
Okay.
because that carried, Paranoid by Black Sabbath. That again also blew my mind. Wow, what is that riff going on, man?
Do you remember those Thompson cassettes from the Middle East?
Oh,
I
yes.
got
Oh,
quite a
yes. Very sleek
bit of,
looking.
yeah. So I've
Very
got like
sleek.
Cream and like a whole bunch of these classic rock bands. They still have these
Yeah, yeah,
Bad
yeah.
Company. I remember those.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
So when did you actually start, playing the guitar seriously? At what age was that?
Uh, I used to make it a point that just play it little bit when my elder brother is not around,
Oh, okay.
so that he doesn't get a little annoyed with it. Anyway, uh, it was class 9, and I remember them by classes because that's how my memory works. It was class 9, and that time MTV Unplugged was quite popular. It was coming on TV. Nirvana's Unplugged was on TV, and we used to videotape, we used to record these Unplugged concerts onto a VCR tape and watch it whenever, later on as well, or exchange with friends. That Unplugged concert was a big influence of Nirvana. And one of the first tunes I picked up was Man Who Sold the World, because it was so easy, just the third string, up and down. Um, so that was the first song I learned. Second was just the opening riff of Enter Sandman of Metallica. Uh, Nothing else matters. That's the opening riff. Sorry, not
Right.
that one. Yeah.
How old were you
So
when MTV came out? When Star TV actually came out? Which standard was that? For me, it was eighth, so it would be around
yeah,
ballpark
around that
7th, 8th. Yeah.
8-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big thing as well, right? We got like access to so much
Paul
new
Khanna.
music. Yeah.
Cool dude, man. Dude.
Because that one time before they split the beam, we would get the same network as Middle East and Hong Kong. So,
Right.
it was a bit more international. Then when they split it, then it became very, Bollywood centric
Right.
at that
I think
point.
MTV Unplugged was a huge thing that even they took on and inspired a lot of musicians, inspired a lot of bands, inspired a lot of bands to just perform and come clean, of what they do, take things in a different arrangement, see things in a different arrangement. That was a beautiful concept. Great concerts also. Pearl Jam, man, who would have thought they would do something like that?
Yeah.
That Unplugged, wow. Lenny Kravitz, all these guys, amazing, amazing.
Do you remember when you wrote your first song?
Oh yeah, that was for we kind of in our school band in class 11. Again, I must have been 16, 15, 16, 17, 16 perhaps. We were invited to play at another school in an inter-school fest, and we had been playing some Radiohead Creep. We had been playing some other stuff, but I was adamant that no, let's write an original. Let's see what happens. And that was a time of borrowing guitars, man. Like, borrow guitars, borrow pedals, everything is borrow. Everything is borrow. So I asked my elder brother, he was good at writing poetry and all that. So I gave him the chords, I gave him the kind of mood that I was looking at. And he kind of penned down few words. And we took it across to the school band. And I said to the singer that, this is the melody. Let's see if this goes anywhere. And the song was called Things Are Gonna Go My Way. I still remember. It had a chorus and it was arranged like a verse, chorus, verse, chorus. It didn't have a bridge. And we performed it at the school fest and we announced that it is an original and yeah, hoo-ha and all that happened. And then that's about it. But it was good feeling just to write your own song and going on stage and performing it and seeing people appreciating them. It's very encouraging.
For sure.
So you suddenly feel that, hey, even, maybe Man Who Sold the World also came from that feeling.
Yeah.
You can tap into that feeling and kind of recreate that also. So that was encouraging. It was quite a big high, actually.
Was that around your first gig around that time?
First gig was always the school band. This must have been, the original must have been like fourth or fifth gig. Because there used to be a lot of these inter-school
Right.
band competitions. And I
Competitions,
was
yeah.
very much into it. Just trying to get everyone together, very enthusiastic, borrow guitars for him, borrow guitars for myself. Yeah.
Around the first time I met you, you were playing in a band called Cognac. So
Yeah.
how did that come about?
Cognac was the first band out of the school that me and my friends had made. Um, Basically, I had met these bunch of musicians at different occasions. Rohan Ganguly, I met at my guitar class with Amitabh. Still remember the first time I met him. I was practicing just some stuff that Omida had showed. And there used to be these batches in Omida's classes, the beginners, the intermediate, and advanced. But everyone would be at the same time because of a big hangout kind of a spot room. So everyone would come and just, chill while the others are doing their classes. And then, when your turn comes and,
Right.
you
It's the doctor's waiting room, that way.
yeah. Actually. And I'm playing some stuff that Omida has shown me. So, and I've been with him for about a year or two, and Rohan just joins in, and he's wearing these very cool Gazelle Adidas shoes. And I'm looking down and practicing, and he says, "Hey, cool lick." I said, "Hey, cool shoes, man." So since then, we've been friends. So I remember that he played guitars. And then Rajiv, the vocalist, I met through Sonam Sherpa of Parikrama. Parikrama's concert. After the concert, I went up on stage to say hi to Sonam. We were friends for some time. And Rajiv was on stage. So Sonam said, "Hey, this is a great vocalist from my hometown, Kalimpong, and he stays in Calcutta. Why don't you guys jam?" Then we exchanged numbers. Vishal, the drummer, he gave me a call because they needed a fill-in for one of their gigs.
Okay.
So all these, permutation, combination, and then told these guys that Vishal's place, this is the address. Why don't we all meet over here and see if something comes out? So everyone carried their guitar and amp, and we just got together and played few songs, and it went off well. And then we went out to eat some kathi rolls, and we were friends. We said, "चल band बनाते हैं." हो गया तो खाना गाना हो गया, अब और क्या चाहिए?
The first time you all played together, did it sound good, or it's like it
Sounded good.
Yeah, it sounded good.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it sounded good. It sounded comfortable. No one is stepping on to anyone's toes, and everyone giving each other space. And that taught me a lot, just to give one another space from that setup. Right from the word go, everyone was hardworking. We would pick up songs, learn songs, try to write our own material. So that seeing everyone growing at the same time, it gives you a push of, getting better at your instrument.
Yeah.
So it was quite fertile.
And one of the songs you all wrote was called "Through Your Eyes," and I still think it's like one of the best Indian indie songs that ever came out. So
Thank you, man. It was great fun.
But how long after your form did that song happen?
We knew about the Great Indian Rock compilation from Rock Street Journal, and it was the third or the fourth maybe year that was running through, and we were supposed to send something. I mean, we wanted to send something, but we didn't have an original good enough to send. So we thought, let's write this, and then maybe it was the second year of the band. I think it must have been the second year of the band. Rohan already had a Les Paul then, and we had these huge stranger pedals the size of an elephant's toe. And then this friend of mine, his name is Indradeep, very old school friend of mine. He had already migrated to New Zealand, and he came to Calcutta for his vacations. He loved Pearl Jam and he loved Eddie Vedder, and he was from that space. And somehow that day, Rajiv, the original vocalist, didn't turn up. So this guy was there, and we were noodling on these chords. And I said, let's try and give this a shot. We had a little image in our head of how the song should go. And then on the final day of the recording, because that was the first time we were ever going to a studio, we were very nervous of seeing so many buttons and knobs and all. So it was very kind of Amitabh, Gyan, and Jayashri to come into the studio and help us and understand how a studio functions, how to mic things, how to use a room. So great memories of just recording the first song together with these people, man.
Where do you all record it though?
It was a studio in Calcutta.
Okay.
Now I don't know whether it's functional or not, but it was decent. It fit our budget, and they recorded it on tape. And there weren't too many mics. There were a few decent mics, and the bass, the guitar, and the drums went together, and the vocals were dubbed after that.
Okay.
I think he did a dummy vocal, and then recorded the final vocals after.
What guitar did you have at the time?
It was a borrowed Fender copy from this company called Giptone.
Okay. I don't know. Made in Cal only, right?
And another one, made in Cal only. Now I remember there was another Korean brand called Sun Mustang, which was again a Fender copy, which I got for 6,000.
Okay.
And it was a very good copy of Fender Strat.
You know something hilarious? Like my first guitar was a Hofner. It cost 3,000 rupees. And
wow.
I don't even know where it is because I gave it to my brother and then I don't know what happened. It's like around worth around $2,000 or $3,000 now. It's collectible. My first. Who knew? At the end of that song, Through Your Eyes, you played this. I should just play it so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's this. That kind of a thing. Where do you get something like that from?
I was in the headspace that this song doesn't need a solo. Mm-hmm. While my bandmates were saying, why don't we add a solo or something? And I didn't want to do it for the heck or for the sake of adding a solo, because that song just didn't need another, part. It needed a little push at the end, which should complement the chords also. Perhaps it was just the bands that I was listening to, bands like REM and these kind of bands, which were not like solo-driven bands.
Yeah.
That inspiration and that whole thing of, perhaps that whole headspace of let me just see the song from a little distance instead of, pushing myself into it and playing this, hey, check me out, guitar solo type. Let me just do something which will complement the song.
There's a Blackstratblues song called E Major Blues. If you go right to the end of it, just before the song ends, you'll hear that same lick there.
Oh, super. Damn cool.
Because what goes around comes around.
Damn cool. Also, that shape which you just played, somehow I was noodling around with shapes. So for me, it was like a greater than that arithmetic sign, greater than shape. Yeah. So I was like, hey, if I move this around, it fits into the C scale. And it's cool because it works on all these chords, somehow.
Yeah, that's
all
the thing.
The chords
it's one lick that works over all the chords in that.
Yeah. And now I remember the initial bit of just me playing one chord and asking the bass player to shift came from Pat Metheny's songs, because we were introduced to that music at the class, at Omida's class, and my ears kind of lit up and it was like, wait, what is this magic going on? The keyboard player and the guitar player is playing one chord. You can definitely hear them playing the same, but the harmony and everything is changing. Then you figure, the bass player is changing while, the guitar player is holding on to one. This is also possible. You don't really have to, play or imitate and copy every time what the other musician is doing. You can just hold your ground and let them move. So that was the idea. So these little concepts,
How old were you when you first started taking lessons from Amitabh?
Right after my board exams.
Okay.
Which is 16.
16. Yeah. That's a good age. And I'm sure you must have learned a ton, from him.
Man, that guy still surprises me, man. He is a plethora of knowledge. He is never ending. Just 2 days back, he put some of his older music from 2016 and he had put it up. And because it's the first time he is gone on online on the streaming sites and Spotify and all. when it came out in 2016, we bought the CD, and the CD is somewhere, and I haven't had the chance to listen to that. Only when I heard him post about it, and then I went on to Spotify and I was hearing what he and Jivraj did. Insane. It's really out there. Maybe some people will not get it, and it's not very sweet melodies or pop or anything, but just pushing the boundary.
Yeah.
Pushing the boundary.
It challenges the listeners. So, the listeners who like.
And he's always been in that space.
Yeah.
He's always, and respect, much respect to that.
Yeah.
But I would say about 95% of Callum musicians, they owe it to him, man. Yeah. Maybe 5% went to some other teachers. And this is not, I'm not making up a fact for you. This is something which everyone knows, that his house was like a, like a gurukul, like an ashram. People just went and learned, even if they didn't have fees, they just learned, and he always had something new to offer. And from there, my wonderment of music came, I'm like, even now, when I hear Beatles or something, I'm always like, wait, I didn't hear that part last time when I heard it. Yeah. Oh, wait, I didn't hear that melody when I heard the song 2 years back. So it's always that fresh thing which keeps you, like a kid in a candy store, man.
So going back to that song "Through Your Eyes," that appeared on a Great Indian Rock compilation. I don't know which year, but that was also a year. I think.
Was there?
Yeah, we had one as well. So that's, I think, the first time because I heard that song before I met you.
Yeah. And you wrote an email.
Yeah, I think I wrote you an email saying, "Hey, I really like this song, and I'm looking forward to meeting you."
We heard Zero because you guys were on. There was some website which your music was on.
mp3.com.
Something Gigpad or someone of those.
Yeah. Gigpad was a site that also changed a lot of things for us. I guess for you all as well. Because the networking suddenly became like, meet all like-minded people who are not playing film music.
And it gives you a sense of community, man. Yeah. You feel strong. You feel suddenly that, hey, miles apart, that guy is facing the same problems that I am facing,
Common suffering brings us together.
Yeah, you feel a little happy. Okay, bro, I'm not alone in this. So that was a good feeling, and of course your guitar tone was monstrous for all of us. We were like, wait, how is he getting those tones? We have been using these Stranger huge pedals, we don't get them. And then when I met you, at GI, figuring out that whole rack and mic placement and pickup height and all that, it's all geek talk, but it's great to know. Yeah. And it's always great to know someone who's an expert at their field and exchanging information freely. Yeah. It just lightens the heart.
The ironic thing is, for our gig, my rig went down and I ended up using your gear.
Yep.
It was like
because I think you all believed the goodness of single pedals, man, and the Boss pedals. Yeah. I think Boss is now, especially, people don't give too much importance to that company because it's very old and they haven't changed their looks. They haven't really made it sleek, but they are built like tanks and they can hold. Yeah. They can hold.
I've literally seen like a guitar player, like some nail or something or a screw, taking a Boss pedal and going bam, bam, bam.
Wow. I have this Boss driver for about 15-20 years, man. No questions asked. Yeah. Blues driver, no questions asked. It's been going strong without any problem. Absolutely in awe of this company, really.
So the first time I met you, I think there were 2 gigs for the Great Indian Rock Festival, and one was in Bombay, one was in Delhi. So I think the Bombay one was first, right?
Bombay one was first. KFC. We went to KFC for the first time. We went mad. Middle class Indians traveling from Calcutta to Bombay. See KFC for the first time.
That was the first time you all played in Bombay, right?
Yeah.
I think
great.
We got you all a gig at the erstwhile Raspberry Rhinoceros.
Yeah. And that was a great fun gig also.
I remember I was running sound at that gig. And
yeah.
I remember Vijay and I telling me, like, there should be an area for like the gig pad moderators so we don't get like crushed with these people going nuts.
A good space, man.
Yeah.
That Raz was a good
I
vibe.
mean, there was always an audience that turned up. That was the good thing about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The acoustics were a little bit dodgy, and the backstage food was rather
Huh.
inedible, but
Like
it was a good vibe. Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah.
was like our place to play. Um, did y'all have a similar place in Cal where y'all played regularly?
Someplace else in Park Hotel was one, but was a little posh. And like posh in the sense you can't wear slippers and all that. You have to have a back strap. I don't know why that back strap is so important for these posh people, but yeah. There was another place called Princeton Club. That was quite good because it was very reasonable. The entry was very reasonable for college students. So you had a good following and you had a good crowd coming in. But unfortunately, it shut down because this club was located in like a building complex at the ground floor.
Right.
So the building people had a problem. I
Oh,
think
okay.
they had the same problem of not wearing sandals with the backstrap.
Crazy. When did Cognac start winding up? Like how long? I think that was 2003 that I met y'all.
Yeah. We played few gigs. We went around playing few gigs in Northeast, in Delhi, Bombay, and some gigs in Calcutta. Then Vishal Nayak, the drummer, he just passed out of school, and he was this genius musician. I mean, you know him.
Yeah,
This guy
it's
could play
ridiculously
any
good.
instrument. Ridiculous, man, ridiculous. He also pushed us a lot, into picking up stuff which was difficult, playing Good Times, Bad Times, man, by Zeppelin. That kind of stuff. Like, I would have never believed that we would be playing this after forming the band in a year's time. I never thought of that. But the moment we started picking up that stuff and Vishal joining in, we were like, wow, this is also possible. So we can really push ourselves and learn better stuff and take this whole thing little ahead.
Yeah.
So Vishal was very keen right from the time we met him. We were 18, 19, and Vishal was 13. He knew that he had to go to Berklee College of Music at the age of 13. And we were like, man, what Berklee and all? Come to IIT Kharagpur and we'll play Springfest. What is this Berklee that you're doing all that? No, man, I have to practice. I have to do my scholarship. I have to study. So eventually that got serious. And after class 12, his class 12 got over. He took a year off just to sit at home and practice and prepare for his Berklee entrance so that he could get a scholarship. And he went in and he scored high and, he just went off to study over there and he did really well. He's in New York now playing with some great artists. He's a great engineer. He's got his own studio set up. So when he left, the band was already about 3-4 years old. And we just decided, it was time to wind up because no point looking for another drummer. We did for some time, it was not clicking. And we were missing that whole chemistry that we had amongst each other. And then we said that it's wiser to just, wrap it up with good memories or else, there's no point carrying it on with different people and different combination and not get the same energy when we are trying to, hook. We are hooking on to that older energy, but it's not there.
Right.
So that was one of the reasons. But we're still good friends, and everyone we have a WhatsApp group which is always busy, is always making fun of one another. And the thing is that everyone remembers what happened 15, 20 years back. So your leg is going to get pulled no matter what.
all your past crimes come back.
Oh yes. Okay. Oh yes.
So what came after Cognac musically for you?
There were a few people that I knew in the Calcutta music circuit. They were forming a band and they had gotten away from a popular band called Crosswinds, the vocalist and the keyboardist and the drummer. And we used to watch this band Crosswinds at gigs and they were very well respected, very good musicians. So they formed this band called Span, minus their original guitar player. And they asked me to join the setup, and we were doing weekly gigs at this place someplace else in Park Hotel. That was a big learning ground for me also because suddenly I'm now trying to learn different stuff that I have not exposed to in Cognac. A lot of Tears for Fears and Phil Collins and that kind of Katie Tunstall, these kind of pop stuff. So that was also a good place to just hone my craft and learn about different musicians and bands. And every night would be different because I would think that this setting on my drive pedal would work the next night also. But the room has changed, the number of people in the room has changed, and the speaker placement has changed. So that setting is not going to work. So you have to again tweak that setting and then work your way through, which reminds me of this really, really funny story about jotting down the settings. Our first gig, outstation gig to IIT Kharagpur, and I borrowed Amitabh's pedal rack, which had all these fancy Boss pedals. And I made a little, on a piece of paper, I wrote down, okay, treble 12 o'clock, drive 3 o'clock, and all that. And two things happened. One was that I had worked these tones out in a small room at Vishal's rehearsal pad. And when we go to IIT Kharagpur to perform, the stadium is big and it's huge. So, of course, that sound is not going to work. And I'm trying to break my head. Why is it not working? The other thing that happened was the concert was in the daytime and you don't know whether the light on the pedal is on or off. The sun is so hard. You don't know whether when you press the pedal, whether the light is flicking on or is it off. So you really have to stomp the pedal and play to know whether it's on or off. So those two things happen. And I learned quickly that, things change. You have to be on your toes. You have to be on the ball and just, go with the flow. That's what. So someplace else, these gigs, they taught me a lot about just, adapting.
And were you still writing music during that time?
Few stuff with the band, but I was not writing much of my own.
Okay.
Because I still wasn't sure about what I wanted to say. There was always an urge of wanting to say something strongly, but I didn't know what it was because I was searching myself. And the search took a long time before it actually settled in. And, I'm still searching, to be honest. But it's much more refined now. My areas of searching has narrowed down. And I know my likes and dislikes much better than what I was at 24.
Right.
So that's a saving grace.
Around, I think, 2007 or 8, you started sending me, stuff that you were writing and recording. And I think I remember telling you, this is the best thing I've heard all year. You need to put this out.
I know. I was hesitant initially because I was just hearing these sounds in my head and to implement it, because I heard a soundtrack and that had this foreign instrument. And then from South America, I get this instrument, but I don't know how to play it. So I'm still figuring these things out. And while you're figuring, you come across certain melodies which hits you, and then you make a song out of it. And then you wait, the song is there. Now what do we do? How do we put it out? That's the next thing. So all these things you learn on the way. And ultimately, what I felt was it really helps if you just switch off the phone and, shut the door and just zone in and do your thing and see what comes out of it. Don't judge it and let it out and then see what happens. Some people will like it. Some people will not like it. Some people will connect to it very, very deeply. Even now I get letters about an album which I released about 8-9 years back. But I realized that you just have to be honest with all your sounds that you hear in your head. If you are not, and you try and copy something else, you're going to have a hard time explaining things to yourself when you sleep at night. At least that would happen with me. And many times, when I would not get a bend right, I couldn't sleep at night, trying to understand what is going wrong. That person is doing it in that way, but if I'm trying to imitate it, it's not happening. Then you understand that, you don't need to imitate that guy. You just need to, be comfortable with who you are. And maybe that's your strength. Maybe the weakness that I think is a weakness is probably my strength. It could be For somebody else it might be something else, but for me it could be my strength. If I'm doing a vibrato in a funny way, that's me.
Yeah.
And I should be accepting of who I am. So it's always we do get into the struggle of, especially on social media, when we see the grass on the greener side. But I feel that, man, the grass is greener on your side as well. You just have to water it.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, in failing to emulate, you come up with something new.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
One thing I've noticed, like, you've always been very comfortable with, both Indian and Western music, and I think you had a Indian classical oriented project, like something along those lines called Ruhaniyat. Yeah,
that's right.
When was that? When did that come about?
That came about after I left the band Span. We played weekly gigs every Thursday at the pub.
Mm-hmm.
That after about 4 years of doing that, I was questioning myself a lot. Like, why do I have to nail the Hotel California solo note for note? And why do I have to do things in a certain way just because the audience is grooving? I can look at things a little different and perhaps I get an audience for that. But I was still trying to search. So I just call it quits with the band, and I stopped playing guitar for some time, just traveling, meeting musicians, meeting folk musicians in Bengal, in Assam, traveling around. That's when I got the hook of just experimenting with different instruments, getting different instruments from people who are traveling abroad or local instrument. And these meetings led me to meet very interesting musicians in the folk scene in Calcutta. This guy called Shatuki, and there was another folk musician from Shantiniketan called Rabi. He used to play percussion and play dotara and sing these folk songs. So we got together, and the intention was just to move away from all the sounds that I was already doing, just something fresh for my ears. That made me explore the Indian system a little bit. And once I did that, that opened up a whole new ocean. That, wow, there is nothing called harmony here. Everything is going like that. And it's okay to play solo for 1 hour, that. So, and okay, you start slow, and then there is something called alap, and then there's something called Jor Jala, where it becomes a little faster and the tabla player joins in. What if it is in a Western context where you start just improvising with few notes, and then the drummer latches on little later, and then you're improvising over one drone. So keeping these two things together is what made me understand that I think finally it's time to write my own stuff, because I'm hearing all these things in my head. Now I have to just put it down somehow or the other.
So I think everything came together really nicely on that first album of yours, and I think
I think so, man. I'm glad. Yeah.
Where did you record it? You recorded in an old studio in Calcutta. What was it called?
Yeah, this was a studio called the HMV studio in North Calcutta. Huge studio, where Satyajit Ray, the filmmaker, recorded all his film soundtracks. You still have his piano, and you have a lot of old instruments over there. You can fit in a huge 35 piece orchestra over there and record. Huge ceilings. They have their old mics right from that time, the U87, 47, all of them are there, and at a very, very reasonable rate, because prices never went up, man, in Cal. Prices never went up. And it's good in a way. It's bad in a way also. But yeah, that space I really enjoyed recording because of the room and of the mics that they had.
And you recorded digitally, I'm guessing, onto Pro Tools?
Yeah. They had Pro Tools running. I don't remember what board it was. Some old kind of a board, which they changed later. Now they have a Yamaha board, but there was some old board they had. And very nice monitoring, very nice room, very good engineer. Yeah, that was great fun. Great fun getting all the musicians, my favorite musicians there, and taking all my instruments and just experimenting. And a lot of the stuff was just created at the studio at that moment. Because you see, the red light is clicking and the money is going, and then you know that you better come up with something. So it's actually, in a way, it's a good, because it's a good thing you are being put into a corner, and then now you're being asked that, hey, put your best feet forward.
Yeah.
That's I think that is something which motivates me a lot, where suddenly I have very few things and I have to make best of whatever I have.
Right.
Instead of running around and seeing, oh, I can get this, I can get that, and then you get lost in that whole decision making process. Just make the best of what you have.
Right. Do you have any favorite memories of the sessions?
Favorite memories is meeting musicians and asking them to put their stamp on my music. This Armenian musician, his name is Vashe.
Mm-hmm.
He had migrated from Armenia to Calcutta during the Russian breakdown of the countries in the late mid 90s. And he migrated to Calcutta. He was a fantastic musician. He played an Armenian folk instrument called the duduk. It's a flute, very haunting, which you hear in the soundtrack of Gladiator a lot. So hearing him play the duduk on my music, is there on a song called Prelude to Poland. That lit my heart. That was like, I was like, wow, I can die right now. That kind of a feeling. So those things encouraged me, man. Just people being honest and adding their things and seeing that a seed can grow into a plant, in this span of time. And if you water it well, it just it brings a lot of hope. And I think hope is a good thing to have.
I really like a lot of like disparate influences come together. Like say, for example, on like what's that? Ek Golpa Bolo
Ekta Golpa.
So that's like a Bengali folk song, but then you got like pedal steel and stuff like that. Like that, almost American country influence.
For me, it was like, hey, this is a country folk song. Why not try the country guitar, like that? And I had this EHX POG pedal, which you turn the filter on, it becomes like that, lap steel kind of
effect. It swells in the notes here.
So I used that and it fit. But I remember one of our folk musician friends from Rouhaniat said, hey, what is that funny thing happening at the back? And so then I had to tell him, this is how you get that effect, because he was not exposed to that sound.
Yeah, obviously.
This is how you get that effect, and it's creating that nice lilt at the back. So I'll just go ahead with that.
And then you've got this very cool, I think Vishal did that groove on your dad's poem. What's that one called?
That's it. Yazooki Pari.
Yeah. That's probably my favorite song on the album.
That drums was recorded in the kitchen, by the way.
Nice.
Few 57s, that's it. Again, he also is someone who showed me that, you can do so much with so little.
Yeah.
You don't need these fancy studios and fancy gear. I mean, it's good to have it, but when you are stuck in a room with few 57s, you can still create good stuff. Bon Iver's first album is, like that. It's still a big inspiration for me, because that was recorded in a old cottage with just one Shure SM57. The entire thing, the vocal, the guitars, and it's a path-breaking album.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going in a different direction.
Cool. You can do that all you want here. So once the album comes out and you start getting like really positive feedback, I'm sure till today you still hear a lot of
I'm grateful. I'm very grateful
from listeners. So that kind of gives you a little bit more confidence in your own work, I'm guessing.
It does. Definitely it does. And you see that people who you would have never connected or you would have never met otherwise, they start writing to you, and very emotional stuff and very moving stuff and very deep stuff, which you wouldn't normally have this conversation with a stranger, because you have never met him. But, just because you created something in your own bedroom and that somehow entered his life into a very personal space, and you've affected, or your craft has affected that person, and then he takes the courage to write and open up a part of him to you. You have to be gentle with that. I have had, if I may share this,
Yeah, sure.
I've never shared it on my social media post or whatever, but I think it's something. It's a good thing to talk about. Once I received a letter on Facebook. On someone messaged me, some guy from Punjab. He was having a huge problem at home, and lots of fights and alcohol issues and this and that. And he had left his house and he left his family and he went off. He took a train off somewhere, and he kept hearing Dastan, a song from my album, when he was in another city. That kind of compelled him to come back and hug his family, and that compelled him to write to me about it also. I was very, very moved, and because I did not write the song in that sense, it was just, I'm hearing sounds in my head, I'm just going to put it down and then let's see where it goes. But something like that, if it happens, something big like that, you really question the power of art and craft in the world. And no matter what people say about marketing and social media and this and that, I think that at the end of the day, if you've put something out and you've put your best and you've been very honest with it, it'll reach the right ears when it has to. Somehow the universe works in that funny way, and there is no algorithm which will crack that. It's there. It's the universe's algorithm. It will reach where it has to. Big, small, high, low. These numbers are for pundits to decide. We are just people who create, man. And if something happens out of it, great. And it just pushes me to do and write better music every day. I'm just reminded that there are so many things that we can do, and yet we come up with excuses and this and that. But there is so much possibility of doing things and creating things and touching lives, instead of just looking at the numbers on the social media run up. There are a lot of things to do. You can take a step back, shut your phone, get into your room and shut the door and, just zone in.
I mean, it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for the numbers and fame and everything, that's a totally different road to have. If you're close to,
it's a different road. It's a different road. It's a different road. For some people it'll work. For some people it might not.
Then you mean you just need to hire people who actually do the music.
Yeah. That also is there. That also is there. I mean, of course, people who are smart, they do that. Yeah. But for me, it's always been, wait, I have an extra hour right now. What else can I learn about the craft? What else can I go on YouTube and figure, hey, wait, that knob, let's see if I turn that knob, what happens? That excites me more. And that, I think, is what pushes me to wake up every morning to, wow, this, hey, there is something which, I have not played yesterday. Maybe something new will come today. Even the C scale now, when I play, I'm always like, whoa, there is so much beauty in it, man. So much more possibilities of just playing a simple C scale up and down. Just the other day, I was doing a C scale. I recorded the C scale. And then on another track, I recorded the C scale backwards, playing both. And then I was thinking about all the harmonies. And then I shifted the octaves. I was like, wow, this is again so interesting, So possibilities are endless. It's endless. And that's what, if anyone who's seeing this interview, any artist, I would say that try and tap that side, because that is a never ending well. And you'll never be disappointed with it, because you will always have something to surprise you. You'll always have something to excite you. It'll always keep you on your toes. And there's always something new that you'll discover. And that's the beauty of life, because no two moments are same, and that's how it is. Just explore.
Through your first album, I believe you then got a fair amount of work scoring music for film and for documentaries and stuff like that. When did you get into other art forms apart from just music? Have you always been interested in film, for example?
I have always been interested in watching a lot of films. I love cinema from all over the world. One of my biggest influences is Iranian cinema. big influence. Somehow, I got a lot of messages after I put my album out from people and filmmakers that these sounds, they are triggering images, and I did not know how that was happening. But now when I backtrack, it's probably because of the films that I saw, that all those soundtracks which I heard, somehow that seeped into the music
Yeah.
without me really questioning or being aware of it. So that led to more of these collaborations of people writing and hey, can you do that dastan kind of music for my film? Or
Yeah.
hey, can you create that drum sound which you did for Yazooki Pari for this song of mine? And one thing led to the other. Yeah.
The funny thing is, a lot of Hindustani classical music comes from Iran as well.
Yeah.
The
For sure.
lineage, the
One of the
lineage
oldest
is,
civilizations, man.
yeah, the lineage exists.
Yeah. For sure.
Do you find it weird when someone like on a film has heard something that you've composed, like an original piece of music, and then wants you to kind of clone it, but not quite, you know? Do you ever
If
get
it is my
stuck with
piece
that?
of music, it's easy because I understand that because he has been with that music for some time, so I can understand the attachment which happens with it.
Yeah.
But I always make it a point to tell him that I'm not going to do exactly what there is. I want to understand what your vision is and what you are seeking, and I'll try and give my best to that. And I'll try and create something which will go with what the sensibilities of what I'm seeing on the scene at that time as well. But I'm not going to copy and be a Xerox machine, because that's why I stepped out of bands,
Yeah.
because I did not want to note for note do Hotel California solo. I learned it and that's good. But, I'm not going to repeat that whole thing again because it's a collaborative effort, and
Yeah.
I'm seeing this, I'm feeling something, so let me put it down and show you what I feel. And then you see, if
Yeah.
this is going somewhere, then we talk about how we fine tune that.
Yeah, as long as your reaction to whatever you're seeing is honest, then that comes through, I
Totally.
guess, in the
Totally.
music. Apart from film, is there any other art forms that you're interested, like painting or anything like that?
I used to paint a lot. In fact, before music, also it was heavily into just painting and uh, displaying the paintings in the complex or even in the puja pandals in Durga Puja in Calcutta. That was a huge thing. But somehow, when music came into my life, I knew that this demanded a lot more time and effort, so that took a backseat. But I love the idea of photography and just try and click and be present whenever I'm around something beautiful. Just try and see what I can make out of it or absorb it. But I to my mind, everything is interconnected. Films, books, food, nature is all interconnected to my mind. Because I find that everything, a landscape might trigger some musical notes, but I need technology to interpret those notes. So even technology is also, and the way you use your laptop is also your instrument.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
also a musical instrument,
Yeah.
man. Even though it's buttons and all, but it's an instrument. So to know all these little things is knowing an art form. To understand that uh, when you're seeing a scene in the daylight is different from the dark, but the traffic sound also changes because the humidity of the air also changes at that time. So the sound designer also keeps that in mind, and the traffic sound at night is a little different from what you hear at day in a film. So you always learning something new, and it's just wonderment, man. It's just
Do you believe like your best music comes like where you almost become like a conduit, a vessel, and it just channels through you?
yeah. I agree what you're saying. It's many times I've tried to intellectualize the whole process and tried to insert this whole fancy chord which I learned from Guitar Player magazine the other day. And then I'm listening back to it. It's not moving me.
Yeah.
It's my ego which made me play that complex chord when it needed something simpler. And at that time, I try and listen to my intuition. And at that time, I try and realize that it's okay to be silent and see where this thing is leading me. And most often, that piece of work will guide you. There will be a voice in your head which will tell you, hey, why don't you pick up the mandolin and play? Hey, why don't you, do a high pass on the drums and see what it looks like? But for that, you have to be very, very open and not put labels that this is good, this is bad.
Yeah.
Anything can trigger you. Anything can just inspire you.
Like I've noticed there's times like where I've been in the zone working on it. Like then maybe a couple of days later I'll listen back to it and I won't remember anything about making the song.
For sure. Yeah.
You're like, where was I when all this was happening? It's like there's another area of your brain that actually does, the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And your basic conscious thought is just about like, let's not, let's just capture everything.
It's a very sacred space, I believe, man.
Yeah.
And the more of us we tap into it, I think the better things we'll create.
Yeah.
Because it comes from a space where you're not judging yourself, no.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're just being accepting of who you are. इतना ही आता है, इतना ही देंगे boss. अब इससे ज़्यादा नहीं आता है तो कहाँ से देंगे? It's like that. This is what I can do to my best, and this is what I am giving, and this is what it is, man. I'm presenting to you on a plate, and this is how I am,
Yeah.
And I have my weaknesses, I have my strengths, but this is what I have to say.
Yeah.
And be accepting of who one is. It can be a challenge, it can be a task, but it's something you can work upon also, and it's good to just go with the flow.
Yeah. Which kind of brings us back to the starting point, like a musician, an artist is a musician with something to say.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Okay, so I just want to ask you a couple of your favorite places to eat in Calcutta.
Oh man! Right now, I'll tell you this. I think it might just go out of
business.
No, not out of business. It'll go out of proportion. Anyway, the thing is, this family during lockdown, they started cooking. It's a Chinese family. They started cooking authentic Chinese food that they would eat in their houses, and they started cooking it for the online business because a lot of things were shut down during lockdown, small business and all. So this family started off from their home in Tangra. Tangra is this Chinatown in Calcutta, where the Chinese, they've been staying there for about, more than 200 years. So it's like 3, 4, even 5th generation Chinese people you'll find in Calcutta who speak Hindi. Many of the people, they communicate amongst themselves in Hindi and Bengali. Because they're 5th generation, 4th generation, but their looks and their culture, they still try and retain. The Chinese New Year is celebrated with a lot of enthusiasm in Calcutta, the dragon dance and all. So this family, her name is Jessie Jung. She's one of the most fantastic cooks. Fantastic. So her kitchen is something which I'm eternally grateful for. She and her family, her husband Peter and their daughter, these 3 people they run. And it's all delivery. They don't have an outlet. You have to order a day before. And the page is on Instagram. Fantastic food. Fantastic.
Awesome.
And there's another place called Zamzam in central Calcutta. They make killer biryani and Mughlai food. Few of these. And of course the kathi rolls.
Yeah, where's your favorite kathi roll?
Oh, that has to be in Ripon Street, this area that we grew up in. A lot of Anglo-Indians first there. And that has a very healthy community of food lovers. So cheap and best, no fancy stuff. With about 15-20 rupees, you'll fill your tummy. And then after one kati roll, you have a nice firni. There are a lot of these dairies over there, and they make lassi and firni. So that used to be our thing. After rehearsal, eat one of these rolls, eat one of the firni, and you're sorted. Or if you want more, have one lassi, you're sorted.
And now that you've moved to Bombay, you've found some new favorite places there.
Again, during lockdown, I found a lot of families opening up the home kitchens. That was very, very reassuring. I've met this aunt from Chennai. She stays in Kandivali, and she cooks this really, really great chettinad chicken, authentic Chennai style. So sometimes we order stuff from there. Of course, Matunga has some great South Indian spots. Fish is amazing in Bombay. So that's a great thing. And we love cooking at home, man. So that's another good thing that we spend time in. And coming back to it, cooking is like an art. It's like relieves you, man. It'll trigger you, it'll relieve you, because it's similar to making music. How much masala you put, what you don't add, what you add, and when do you put it in the course of the meal. It suddenly, these are all senses. These are all triggering your senses. So I think that even that is also a very refined art form, cooking.
Yeah, for sure. I'm lucky here because in New Zealand you get like heaps of Asian those ingredients and stuff, and that's been something that I've been enjoying as well.
Yeah.
And plus, like
food, man, I think it's a great bonding factor.
Don't you find like every good musician is a foodie and B wicked sense of humor? It's like universal. And if they don't have both of those, you have to be a little
missing it.
Yeah, you have to be a bit wary. Like this guy's a bit strange.
Yeah.
Because all the good ones I know, like they have a killer sense of humor. Like even like Lou Hill.
I remember, of course. Oh man. I remember this quote by Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. He said, "Pehle khana, phir gana." For him, it was let's see if we can enjoy a meal together. Two unknown musicians. If we can enjoy a meal together, then playing music is smooth. Because you'll get along. Because once you've enjoyed a meal together with a stranger, that you can get along and do other things. That Ghana is secondary. Pehle khana.
I remember the first time we met also, we were like probably running off and finding somewhere to eat.
Then you took us to what was it? Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali Road. Probably, yeah.
And that roll place.
Nurani.
Famous road. Did
I take you to Nurani?
No, that roll place in Church Gate, man.
So, I know. Badimia, yeah. Because there was this other one as well. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Rumali Roti, they had.
That's like your late night hangout, like when everything else is closed, one of those. There's always somewhere in that in the city to go and find something to eat.
That place, South Bombay, that whole place has a great vibe, man.
Yeah.
Great vibe. The architecture and the old Parsi canteens and cafes, great vibe.
That's one thing in common, I guess. Both Bombay and Calcutta have is the old British influence in the in the older parts of the city.
True.
Because Cal was the first British capital, right?
Yep. I'm always in awe of that architecture, man. Things they did 300 years back is still holding strong. You make a bridge now, in 25 years it's gone. You then question, man, the cement must have been really good back then.
Or the people knew what they were doing.
Some jol is happening right now because the bridge is not holding on.
Crazy. What's like the biggest difference you find between Bombay and Calcutta?
Pace of life.
Yeah.
Also because the things are cheaper in Calcutta. One, due to a long regime of the communism over there, the prices have been controlled. The land rent and the land prices are controlled. The market rates are controlled. in the last few years, it might have increased substantially, but overall, it's still a very, very reasonable place to stay and to live and get by and do your things. Bombay, the pace of life is a little hectic because everybody is on the move and there are deadlines and there are projects and you know so again, each city has their own plus and minuses. I can take a boat ride aram se without worrying anything in Calcutta. Over here, you have to take time aside to meet a friend and you have to be sure that, okay, fine, this guy doesn't have a studio session that day, and you make sure that you don't have a studio session that day, things like that. But it comes with its own thing, man, because Bombay also pushes you to put your best feet forward.
Yeah.
Cal, in some ways, because it is so laid back, you get into the, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it day after. You get into that space. Both of these cities, they have their own charms and their own things to speak about.
Awesome.
First time I came to Bombay, the local train was like, whoa, what is going on? It's like a mosh pit.
It's totally, it's worse than a mosh pit. I just wanted to ask you, you played on the very first Blackstratblues tour.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, do you remember much of those gigs?
Of course. I remember the food, definitely. Yeah. We used to go from one place to another and one city to another and just get by at dhabas and eat some great dal and naan and kebabs. I also remember Sid's loud drums. Great drummer, but loud drummer.
Yeah.
Fun. Hyderabad was this new city that I had gone because we had a gig over there. I don't remember the pub. Pune, also, I think I visited for the first time because it was a Blackstrat gig. So yeah, new cities, new food, new people. That was and new music for me, of course.
A lot of those gigs were Blackstratblues and Zero. I think quite a few of them.
Yeah,
those interesting times because, like, till then I never realized that the project had any live potential. It was pretty much like music I was making in my bedroom. Do you remember your first live gig?
I think it was either Music World or IIT Kharagpur, one of these two, because they were all happening, and it's long back, so I'm trying to place both these gigs. IIT Kharagpur, you knew that there were going to be a lot of bands from all over the country, so you better be good. You better be good, and you better be in good form to play. The other reason was boys out of college, not much money and all on their pockets, and we ended up spending whatever money we had when we went to IIT Kharagpur to play, because we didn't realize you have to pay deposit for the blanket because it's winter, and you need a blanket because it's very cold in Kharagpur in the hostel, and the food was also a little expensive at the canteen and all. So we ended up spending all our money, and we have to win because we need to buy train tickets to come back to Calcutta. So there has to be a way that you have to bloody give it all you have and put up a great performance and win that 5,000 rupees or 6,000, whatever it was, and get the train ticket to come back. So that was the encouragement. The train ticket was the whole thing, that give it your best.
And do you remember the first gig after your solo album was released?
It was a little later. I had formed a band with Jivraj Singh and Nishay, who I used to teach at that time. Mm-hmm. So these two, they were already playing in Parekh and Singh. They were my first, although both of them didn't play on my album, but I liked the combination of Nishay on bass and Jivraj on drums. So I like that combination. And there was another friend called Doipayan on percussion. And yeah, it was just four of us. There was no keyboard or second guitar. Bass, drums, percussion, and guitar. And I still today, I love that combination of a percussionist and a drummer. Yeah. Because there's some magic which happens, man.
Yeah.
which we guitar players from a distance, we can only watch and admire because it's all in those little gaps and what you don't play, what you add and you complement. Drummers and percussionists, they really, really get along really well. If they lock in, few bands that comes to my mind is Allman Brothers band and Pat Metheny's band. Whoa. I mean, the things that these guys can do is like one machine, giant machine just moving forward. And it can be gentle if it wants to also, in Pat Metheny's situation, it really can back off and provide you a gentle bed. While in Allman Brothers band, it can really be upfront and let you fly. Derek Truck's gig over here, which had 2 drummers. Whoa, that's something which I have in my head.
Yeah, it's like one is like the gear with the the big chunky teeth, and then there's like a smaller gear with like finer teeth in those grooves.
Totally,
so it's pretty trippy. Okay, for the last question, I thought you can turn the tables and ask me anything you like.
Okay, if there's one thing which you had to change about the way that you approach your guitar playing, what would it consciously be?
I think I'd like to have a better vibrato. There's one thing like BB King does with like, especially with that finger, which I've been trying to do for like ages. Yeah. And there's another thing like where Clapton, like when he does the thing and he takes his whole hand off the fretboard and it's just that.
I don't know how he does it.
That's I mean, it's just like another voice, so I mean, I have, like you said, you got to be comfortable with what you already have, but just the ability to be able to do that would be nice. You never know, once in a while just hit that BB vibrato and just let it fly. That'll be cool.
What a vibrato, no? It's like most unique.
Unique.
Most unique, man.
I mean, if you can play notes like that, then that's why you only play that few notes.
Actually.
And the funny thing is, like, he's listened to a lot of earlier jazz guitar players as well, so you can kind of hear like like in the what's that first song in Live at the Regal where he plays the 2-5-1, that kind of a thing. You can hear like he's not just like a pentatonic noodler. I mean, he's got his stuff, but still the economy of the statement. Even like Albert King, saying a lot of stuff with a few notes. That's always been the idea. Anyway, this has been a lovely conversation. Thank you so much. And
it's been amazing, man. It's been amazing catching up and talking about all these gear and food and good times. I think, and there's more to be had.
Yeah, man. We should probably do a part 2 whenever, at some point.
Yeah. And while we are there, great fun on collaborating for Reach Out, man.
Yeah, I was about to say, we finally got around and did a song together. It's called Reach Out, and you can find it on all streaming services or on YouTube as well. So
I think it's been great.
Thank you, Taj. I wish you all the best for future endeavors, and I hope that second album comes out sooner than later.
Definitely. It will.
Awesome.
Take care, Warren.
Yeah, Baba.
And all the best.
Chalo.
See you, bro.